The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, is a platform established to enhance cooperation and dialogue between China and African countries. It was launched in 2000, with a meeting taking place every 3 years since its inception. This year, over 50 African heads of states traveled to Beijing for FOCAC 2024, where the 2024 to 2027 action plan was presented. Here are some post-FOCAC insights from selected scholars in the Africa-China space.
Early September this year, the world once again witnessed the convergence of African and Chinese leaders in Beijing under the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation. I had the privilege to be in China, in Beijing, during this period, and it was really interesting to see the importance the Chinese government has placed on this meeting. For instance, right from the airport, you could see how African flags have been lined up all the way into the Beijing township city, and then for me it was really, really interesting to see so many African government officials come in their numbers for this year's FOCAC. Quite interesting. And for me, it's again a testament to the fact that the Chinese government wants to continue to deal with Africa on a continental basis. It wants to deal with African governments as a whole and not as individual countries. But do African governments want to deal with Beijing as a whole? Do they want to deal with this Asian economic power through the African Union? That is a question that we need to look at, and that is a topic for another day. But again, we saw the two sides come up with policies, especially the Chinese government, again announcing certain policy initiatives and support for African governments. They again outlined areas they want to focus on, priority areas they want to focus on in dealing with African governments. And one of the very important areas for me is the agricultural cooperation between the two sides. During this year's FOCAC, and if you look at the Beijing Action Plan 2024-2027 on paragraph 6.1.7, you will see that the two sides have once again affirmed to meet the 20 billion worth of agriculture products exports from China, from Africa by 2030. And we hope that this target will be met by 2030. But since 2001, we've seen that there have been an increase in the importation of agricultural products from Africa into China. For instance, in 2001, we can only talk about 60 million worth of agricultural products being imported from Africa. But by 2020, the records show that there is about more than 3.1 billion worth of agriculture exports from Africa into China, and that for me is good news. Indeed, especially since 2018, we've seen agriculture products from Africa experience very sharp uptick. For instance, in 2022, the Shanghai Waigaoqiao port experienced about more than 1,800 tons of African sesame imports into China. And this is like about a 4.3-fold increase as compared to the previous year, same period in previous year. We've also seen that Kenya has also exported about 50 million worth of fresh and frozen avocados into China. Since 2021, Rwanda is also exporting chili into China. And we can see that more African countries are exporting commodities like sesame, like chili, like cashew nuts, apples into China. And this is good news. So far, so good. I hope that more African governments will take advantage of China's reduced restrictions on African agriculture products, because over the years they've been very strict quarantine rules and other tariffs, but the Chinese government has lifted some of these rules, and I hope that African governments can take advantage. One of the ways they can do that is to get closer to the Chinese government and get to know what the requirements are. And in similar vein, I hope African governments can research more to know what the market in China demands from the African side, so that we can take advantage of the huge Chinese consumer markets of African products.